Simply Financial with Christopher Calandra, Certified Financial Planner, is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Simply Financial podcast. We are in season number 3, episode 25. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. On today's episode, I have a special guest. She's not in studio with me. She's across the country, but I have with me today Cassie Parks. She is a coach, and she supports people who want to turn their wildest dreams into dreams that come true. She retired at the age of 32. If I'm a skillful interviewer, maybe I could find out how long ago that was without specifically asking for her age. She is also a best-selling author, and when she works with clients, she has created this course called Manifest 10K, which I'd like to learn more about. She has served more than 1,500 clients in over 26 countries, so I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. Cassie, thanks for spending a few minutes with me today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I am really excited about this discussion. Did I do the introduction justice? I always find as a podcast host, it's a little challenging when you kind of describe somebody and kind of tee them up. How did I do?
You did great. I love it because you use all of my words. Like often people will tame them down. It'll be like, oh, she's just a coach, or they don't use the wildest dreams. And so I think you did a fabulous job.
All right. Good deal. So I mentioned in the introduction that let me say it this way. In preparing for this, because you and I have not met in person, we were introduced through a common connection. Your website, and I said it in the introduction, is that you describe yourself that you retired at age 32, but the retired is in quotation marks. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So it became I put it in quotation marks because I left my job because I wanted to become a coach. I wanted to pursue that full time. I wanted to have the time for that. And as I was getting ready to leave my job in sort of the last month and telling all my friends and all that, they're like, oh, she's retiring. It became this thing like, she's retiring from her job. And so in a sense that I had the money that could passively pay my bills, I did retire, but I didn't. Retirement for me was never just like, I don't know, going out and just hanging out. It was, okay, what can I do next? I want to be a coach. Like, let's go take this business and help people and make my dreams come true.
So when we talk about retired, and that's what I wanted to delve into a little bit, because the retirement definition, I think, is in need of an overhaul, because traditionally you meant retirement where you left a job, you collected a pension, collected Social Security, maybe traveled a little bit, but, pretty much just enjoyed your twilight years. But your version of retirement at 32 is far different from that. I think what you're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that like you left the corporate grind to own your own business, have a little bit more freedom in your calendar and schedule, and have financial independence so that you have more choices than maybe you did when you first entered into the corporate workforce. Is that a good description?
That is a great description. Like financial independence is what I was going for. I wanted the choice. Do I have to go to work today, or do I want to build a business, whatever I wanted to do? So it really was that freedom.
Okay. And so with that in mind, how would you describe retire? Because you even seem to indicate in your recollection that they were saying you were retired, but it sounds like you were a little hesitant to embrace the retire when it was first advanced to you, but now it's on your website, so you must have embraced it at least a little bit. What's your definition of retired?
So my definition of retired is having that amount of money that is no longer working. You're right, that sort of older version. It's a little bit of the mix, right? It's having enough money passively that you can pay your bills, that you have that choice whether you're going to continue to go to work or not, or you're going to continue to do a business, continue to do any of that.
So you heard my introduction. How long ago did you retire?
5 years ago.
Okay. All right. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so That's impressive. That's a great accomplishment. You sound like you had a lot of success in the corporate world, and I am imagining that your income was higher than average, and you must have done pretty well for yourself. Is that a good description?
Yeah, it was higher than average. And it had really just in the last couple of years that I was working had crossed that higher than average mark. And I mean, I was set up. My boss was priming me to take her job when she retired in 5 to 10 years. You know, she was doing all the things so that I'd be lined up for that. And yeah.
So how long before age 32 did you plan this retirement where you were going to leave the corporate world, become a coach, have your own entrepreneurial small business? How long of a runway did you have leading up to age 32?
Such an interesting question. I think it depends on where you start the story, right? I learned the term financial independence when I was 19. I learned that there were people who had enough, in their investments that they were living off of, and I was like, that's what I want. And I kind of forgot about it for a couple of years, or went on, did college, did all the things. And I was trying to build my coaching business on the side. I always wanted a coaching business. I thought I always wanted to be a counselor, and then I found coaching and I realized that's actually what I wanted to be. And so I was trying to build it up on the side, and I just, between working, coaching, and I just didn't have the time and the capacity both to give my clients as well as to keep marketing my business. And so I went back to myself and I said, what is it that you really want? And it was financial independence. And at that point I had 2 investment properties that I had done, and I had invested in those for more of a long term. Like my parents had investment, or they have investment properties, and I see like, oh, okay, that's worth this now 20 years later, and that seems like a good idea, but it was more of a long-term strategy. And really something shifted about 2 years before I left my job, and it was a combination of things. One day I randomly just got on like the equivalent of Zillow or something, and I was looking at properties in Denver, just sort of intuitively looking at things, and I found one, and I was like, oh, if I could buy that for that and rent that for that, that would be, I don't remember the exact numbers now, $300 or $400 a month, and I'm like, I could do that now. And so that kind of started the process of, oh, okay, if I could repeat that a couple times, I can get, I can start this passive income ball really rolling. And it actually shifted the way I looked at the original properties that I owned, and really I started to see them as like, okay, this is the building of my passive income. And then I just kept going, and I use a lot of mindset. I do engage a lot of attraction, and so things, once I got really clear about what I wanted, started happening really fast. So it was about 2 years if you want to look at the short one, but it started when I was 19. Yeah.
Okay. And what age did you buy the first of the 2 investment properties you described?
Oh, I was probably 25 or 26. It was my first home, and it just I downsized once all my roommates moved out. I said I don't need this big house, and I bought a cheaper house down the block, but kept that one.
Okay. And so without any specifics, right, at that time, were you also investing in traditional investments like your 401k, IRA, stocks, and bonds, or were you strictly investing in real estate?
Absolutely. So my 401k for sure, like you always, I was over the max that they matched, but I'm a believer you always want to, if someone's matching and giving you money, you definitely want to be taking advantage of that. So I was investing in my 401k. I've been investing in my IRA since I was 19, even, in moments where I could only do 25 or $50 a month. That has been consistent since I was 19. So yeah, I was doing those other things, as well as really, doing what I call I was starting to invest only in really what made me truly happy, which left a lot of other money because I wanted to invest in more properties and more properties. So I was also lowering my expenses as well.
Very good. So are you still today, now that, again, retired at 32, have a successful coaching business, helping people achieve their wildest dreams, are you still acquiring real estate? Is that an expanding portfolio, or has it remained kind of the same over the last 5 years since you left the corporate world?
It's shifted a lot. I shifted my portfolio. after I left because I found I liked certain properties better, and then invested in a couple areas. And then I have a new project that I bought about a year ago that we're going to get started renovating. It's an 8-plex. It's a big renovation. It's an 8-plex and a house all in one property. And so that's continuing. Yeah.
All right, good. So what I learned in looking into your website and just preparing for our conversation today is you use this term money stories, and you seem to focus on money stories. Can you tell us what you mean by money stories?
Yeah. So it's our default. So what I found, and I found this by helping clients and then interviewing them and looking back, and they would tell me where they'd come from. And I started to hear about the same 5-star stories over and over again. And so what I've realized is that we often, if we don't choose our money story, we pick up one by default. It could be the same as our parents. It could be like the opposite. It could be we think we're trying to be better or different than our parents, but we're doing. Or it could just be generally how we were around money, experience money, talk about money, survival, just enough, hold tight, money chaser, and money hot mess.
Okay. So with the money stories, what did you learn about money growing up? And first off, Cassie, did you grow up in a wealthy household, upper middle class, solidly middle class, lower middle class, poor? Can you just kind of set the tone of what kind of household you grew up in?
Middle class. I don't know where the cutoff is. So,
yeah, I don't either.
I would say a middle class. I never felt like we didn't have a lot of money. There's one point in my life, it's interesting when you look back at things, but I definitely didn't think we had a lot of money because we only had one car. Because my dad had a car for work, and he didn't have a second car, so we could only drive one car on the weekends. What I realize now is that was a smart financial choice. But, that was one of the things that I took in, we don't have a camper, we just have one car. But definitely middle class. And my dad climbed the corporate ladder and did his things. And but I also learned that you had to work really hard. My dad worked a lot of hours. He worked 6 days a week most of the time that I was younger. When I was in high school, he actually, his job was Monday through Friday. He lived in a different city, so he lived in Oklahoma. We lived in Denver.
Wow.
And so, yeah. And he did that for reasons I didn't want to move. I was in high school, so that was nice of him. But it was also, it built this thing that money's hard. For a long time, I thought that. And now, as I'm older, my story was you had to work really hard for money. There was no freedom, and also that you had to get lucky, because my dad had told me at one time when he got a new promotion, he's like, I've just gotten lucky. I've been in the right place at the right time 7 times in my career. And they said, do you want to try this job? And he said, yes. And so as I'm trying to build wealth and I hear this term financial independence, for me, one of the things that I had to really shift in my story was this belief that you had to get lucky. That was the only way that you could get wealthy, but also, or, make a lot of money, and that you had to work really hard. So I had to navigate, and it was by learning and seeing there are people that do have more passive incomes, that do different things to create money. And what I've learned is that a lot of the stories that I made up watching that, and this is true for my clients as well, weren't always accurate. But they're what my brain took in and what my brain created a story. And so I knew I wanted money and I wanted freedom, which made me a lot of a money chaser, because I was always like, let's go after this idea. Let me build this business. Let me try this. Let me do this, to try and make money and create money.
So let's unpack a couple of those things. And first off, if let's say I was a new coaching client of yours, and you were just, trying to get to know me, and I said, I've had some success, and 7 times in my career I've come out ahead because I got lucky. How would you respond to that?
I would ask more questions. Why do you think you were lucky? What else was happening? What did you do? Really unpack even deeper. What does that actually look like? What does that mean? Why do you believe that you were lucky instead of you created that?
Well, that's what I was going to say, because that seems not to criticize your dad, but But it seems like you didn't get lucky 7 times. You had an opportunity, and you took advantage of it, and that probably came with a lot of work before the opportunity was presented to you, as well as a lot of work that was required after you took on the opportunity. That lucky part, it seems to me, in my own worldview, minimizes too much the hard work and the ethics your dad probably had and the integrity to make those endeavors successful. So that's a curious thing.
Yeah.
I guess my worldview is that you do have more control over your destiny, and if somebody gets lucky once, like they win the lotto, or they get lucky and they're the 3rd employee at Amazon, all right, there's some luck involved in there, but 7 times, you might have something to do with that.
Right? And that's, when you're a child, you sort of take these things in, and as I've grown and had to look at my own story, that's exactly what you said is what I've come up with. Like, no, it was his hard work. It was his integrity. It was, that he was willing to go above and beyond and do what it needed, do what he needed to do to make himself the person who could do that next position.
Sure. I think one of my favorite quotes, and I'm a little bit of a quote junkie, but one of my favorite quotes is that, I think I'm going to say this right, but luck is when opportunity meets preparedness. Yes,
I love that one. Is that Vince Lombardi?
I heard it from Earl Nightingale,
okay.
who was, self-help guru a couple of generations ago.
Yeah.
Part of the Nightingale Conant organization. So I would attribute it to him, but he probably stole it from somebody else. But that predates Lombardi.
Yeah. So that's probably where it came from.
Yeah. So I imagine when you meet with people and you begin coaching with them, you want to find out what their money stories are. Is that right?
Yeah, and most people come, they just take it's free download guide on my website, and they, they can find out they can identify their story, because the thing is, it becomes really easy. Like most people, oh yeah, that's me. I'm survival. Like I'm always at the end. I don't know how much money is in my bank account. I just, like if I have it, I spend it, and then I go figure it out, if I don't have it. And so they can identify that pretty quickly. If it's just enough, they're like, oh yeah, there's never enough for extra. The money hot messes always identify themselves just by the name, because that's actually how I named that story. Is I had client after client they were like, oh yeah, I used to be a money hot mess. And I'm like, oh, that's your story. Got it. And so the same with chasers, if there's somebody who has a million business ideas, or starting, has joined like more than 4 MLMs, or, always has this great idea and their family's tired of hearing about it, that's generally a money chaser.
Okay. And what would you say, would you be able to say, let me ask it that way, would you be able to say that there's a common money story that you see a lot that's really harmful to the individual, that holds them back from having success, whether that's career, financial, relationship? Is there anything you could point to?
Like, is there one particular story that holds them back?
Like a common story that you would say, boy, people that have this story are going to have a hard time achieving financial success and success in other arenas. Is that may not be an appropriate way to look at it.
So I would say, I just wanted to clarify your question. All of the money stories I've identified, they don't lend for total success. Because they keep playing out with the same situation. So there's people that I know, and it plays out at, $300, and I've heard people go, oh yeah, my brother's he's a chaser, or I'm trying to think what she said, but she's like, he'll lose $3 million. He'll go build a business and then he'll lose $3 million. And so all the stories in themselves that I've identified, don't lend to ultimate success, and they do play out in other areas of life. So they seep over. I always say, when you change your money story, everything changes, because as you start to become more aware and you write a new story that you want to be true, a lot of other things in your life start naturally changing.
Beautiful. So without giving away all of your secrets, because we don't want to do that, but could you give us a sense of some of the best ways for someone to change their money story, or perhaps how you can help cultivate your clients to change their money stories to improve outcomes for them?
Absolutely. So I always, so often people want to change their financial situation by saying, okay, I want to get to here, and kind of come up with it's like they come up with a goal or they come up with this, but they don't often know why. So, and I think that the best money stories you change when you go after something. So that's why it's Manifest 10,000, because as we put that $10,000 spot out there, we say, this is what we want. We want to attract $10,000 in your life. The first thing to do is get clear about what you're going to do with that. So many people I've heard over the years, thousands of people have gone through the course. I just want more money. Well, what do you want it for? So I can do whatever I want. Awesome. What do you want to do? Like, what are those specific things? Get specific about what you want, because a couple things start happening in your mind. Your mind will get on board to help you find ways to get what you want now. Like, we put things, if it's a trip, we're like, oh, I'll never be able to take that trip because it's so expensive. But if we actually say, I want that trip, it's going to be $4,000. Your brain will start helping you save for that because it knows what it's doing. This is what we're doing. We're not just putting a pile of money away.
Sure.
So getting that clarity. I'm
sorry to talk over you. It kind of relates to that popular book, Start With Why. That you have to define what your why is. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, your mind will help you figure out how you could achieve that, but you have to define the why. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And people don't often do that with money, I've found.
Yeah, they just want more money or more income or more wealth in the abstract, but not tie it to what that would mean for them or their family, their children, or being able to give more money generously, or to be able to retire early, whatever their definition of retire is. So that's a great approach, and I would endorse that 100%. So you have this course, again, not giving away all of your secrets, Cassie, but you have strategies for manifesting money. So this Manifest $10,000 course, because of time limitations, we're not going to be able to go into it in the greatest amount of detail, but can you just give an overview of some of the strategies?
Yeah. So one is getting clear. We covered that. It's really tapping into who you'll be. So when you have $10,000 more dollars, because if you have $10,000 in your bank account versus $500, you think differently. You make different choices. You look at the world differently. You're thinking about different things. If you only have $500, you might be thinking, oh, how am I going to make rent? If you have $10,000, you're thinking, oh, okay, where am I going to invest? And just that difference in the way working your brain differently, again, opens up space and helps you get to that place that you want to be. It just things start popping up. So getting clear, little things to evaluate. Along the way, how you feel about money. We also do a lot with, okay, how are you going to feel when you have $10,000? And we go to work activating that on a daily basis. So if you're going to feel happy, we got to find a way to activate happy in your life way more often, so that you can get there faster. We look at one of the favorite exercises is I have people take a penny and a $100 bill if they can get one, or the biggest denomination, and just look at both of them and notice the thoughts and beliefs that come up about that. And it's super powerful because it really tells us what's in the back of our mind. What do I think? Do I see all money as valuable? Am I scared of $100, but I'm okay with a penny? Or do I always feel like a penny is not enough, even though, 100 pennies equals $1, $100 equals $100, and so forth. So that's a really powerful one. We celebrate all money that comes in. Everybody has a money manifested log. In fact, last night we just did our celebration photo shoot. Just had another client go over 100K manifested, so they write everything down. Any money that comes in, they find a penny on the ground, they write that down. They get a new client, they write that down.
That's awesome.
So really keeping track of all the money that flows in, because we're so good at keeping track of what flows out. But often we're not appreciating what comes in. Most people direct deposit these days don't even acknowledge, okay, I got paid on the 1st. That's awesome. Like money went into my account, right? They're already thinking about what's going out.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's good stuff. That's really good. So I want to switch gears a little bit. And so listeners, if you could appreciate this, Cassie and I corresponded through email, and we didn't really know each other. We were connected, as I said at the top of the show, by a mutual connection, and I sent just a little outline of, here's what I'd like to talk about on the show, and much of it corresponds to what she and I just went through. But my final question was, and I'm going to read right from my notes, question number 7 was, the FIRE movement, F-I-R-E, the FIRE movement seems to be gaining in popularity. Any thoughts on FIRE? So FIRE stands for Financial Independence, I can't even speak, Financial Independence Retire Early Movement. And so I've listened to some podcasts and read some articles and reviewed some websites about this movement, and it's kind of caught my attention. It really ties into my role as a certified financial planner, helping my clients win with money and achieving their financial goals and objectives. It also speaks to me because I'm on my own wealth-building financial journey. I have goals that I want to achieve for myself as well as for my wife Joelle and I, and we have plans for our 2 children. So this has been a recent journey for me with this FIRE movement. And so I asked her about the show before we started recording. I know this is a long wind-up, but I asked her about this before we started recording just quick. I said, what about the FIRE movement? And Cassie, what did you say?
I said I had to look it up because I was like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, which surprises me because you are the prototypical FIRE enthusiast, if you will, because you created wealth for yourself, created passive income, structured your financial life as well as your lifestyle so that you could leave the corporate world, retire at 32, start your own business, and you're exactly what that movement, the people that are plugged into this movement are often seeking what you've already accomplished. Mm-hmm. So any thoughts on the FIRE movement now that you've gotten introduced to it?
I love it. I mean, I love that concept, and I love it from what I do, and, because money is money and it's awesome, but it's really when we use it, we can create this experience for ourselves. And so for me, that's what the FIRE movement, when I did my research on it, seemed like and touched my heart because that's what I wanted. I wanted just choice and freedom, and I wanted to choose. And I think, I don't know where it comes from, but often we get this, I don't know, there was this old path maybe, I don't know what it is, but where we create this big and it's about the bigger house and the bigger this and the bigger car and this other thing. And what this is really about is about freedom to me when I read it. And you can have all those things in addition. And I think it's all about the choice, like we talked about in the beginning of, do you want more freedom or do you want a bigger house? And both are awesome choices. But I love that there's this movement that's embracing the other side.
Yeah, that's very well said. If you were really plugged into the movement, one of the things that I wanted to explore, and let me get your thoughts on it anyway, is that there's different parts of this movement, if you will, and part of it is building wealth, much like you talk about with the Manifest $10,000, and more is part of it. And I think we could agree that could be overboard. If you just chase the almighty dollar, you might not have a happy, fulfilled, balanced life. But I tell you, one part of the FIRE movement that does not resonate with me, and I've been in a few Facebook pages, and like I said, really focuses on, narrowing your budget. And it's almost like the, how to pinch pennies kind of movement.
Oh. Yeah, no.
And granted, some of that is good, right? Because if somebody, let's say, goes out and eats out lunch every day and spends 10, 15, 20 bucks, in certain situations that may be holding you back from achieving some financial goals, at least temporarily, because you could pack a lunch for much less money. I mean, there's something to be said about that. But what doesn't resonate with me in the FIRE movement is living a penny pinching lifestyle. That's my term. But what are your thoughts on that when you think about financial independence? How much of it is, building your life and building your wealth versus really cutting back on lifestyle?
I love this question. I am not a fan of penny pinching or really, trying to I'm a fan of doing what feels good and finding the way that money feels good in your life and in the way that it's there, right? So being responsible, of course, but I don't love like penny pinching or cutting everything, because what you're doing is you're cutting off your excitement, you're cutting off your happiness a lot of times, and you're really like sacrificing right now. Whereas I think you can do it a different way. You can love your life, and you can, I use the term invest in your happiness. When you really look at everything, so I always use the term invest, because when we invest, we expect a return. And so when you use that, like, okay, if I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to buy this stuff, like, what's the investment I'm going to get back? Okay, like, is it worth it? Go, oh, like, I don't really need that, I'm just buying it to buy it. Or we can go, I really love this. Like, I'm going to love it every day. It's an investment in making me smile every day, or helping me cook dinner for my family, you know. Going to the grocery store is an investment in feeding my family. And so I like to look at it like that. And I think when you start to look through that lens, it becomes easier to save. And that's what I did, is I just started looking at everything like, is this have a return? You know, because I was somebody who would go spend money on just to, I don't know, because it was a quick hit high. But what I really learned to love was investing in the things that really made me happy versus just spending money. And when I did that, my expenses naturally lowered. One of the reasons I could retire at 32 is because I looked up and my expenses were like $2,000 a month. And that was everything. And I didn't set out to pinch pennies. I just started investing in my happiness and knowing I wanted to be financially free.
That's right. No, that makes sense. And it's like that work-life balance. It's the same thing. I mean, do you need to be disciplined about your spending and your expenses? Yes. That means different things to different people, but you can't be reckless with your spending. Regardless of how much money you make, you could always spend more than you make. So I think we're in agreement. And let me just tell you a little of the background, Cassie. In preparation for this is that, so there's this website, it's Choose FI, and they have a very successful podcast. I'd like to get myself as a guest on the podcast, so if they're listening, please invite me on. But then they have like local chapters, Cassie.
Okay.
So, you know, I've been monitoring the boards, and I'm excited about it because financial independence, you're going to build wealth. Again, I'm on that journey. It's what I spend a lot of time. My expertise is helping clients with that. But a lot of the questions are on the board are, you know, how do we reduce our grocery bill? And there's nothing wrong with that, and maybe it's because I'm 48 now and I've achieved a decent amount of success, so it might be that. But when I think of FIRE movement, I don't get enthused about, hey, I cut my grocery bill from $100 to $60. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this other than
I get it.
Yeah, that doesn't sound much fun.
It doesn't sound much fun, and I can tell you from experience, I was just having this conversation with a client of mine. It's like, oh, I invested this, I did something that I really wanted to do, and there's more money, and that was the same experience I had. You know, one of the first trainings I took about money, they were like, you have to invest in fun. And when I started doing that, at the end of the month, there was more money in my account. I'm like, I don't understand how I'm spending more intentionally over here to get, at that point for that was like massages and facials. And I had more money.
Right. Purposeful with the money. Be deliberate. Be smart about it. You have to earn it somehow, passively or however. You want to take good care of it.
Yeah.
So that's good. I'm glad you liked that question because I kind of felt maybe I was putting you on the spot because I've spent more time looking into the FIRE movement than maybe you have. But it sounds like there's a lot of similarities in how we look at it. So I know you're an author. You've written several successful books, but as we kind of wrap up, books that are not your own, and hopefully people go to your website. We'll give it out towards the end, and they could check out your books, your website, your coaching program. But can you point to a couple of books that you think have had an impact on you and your money stories as you've achieved success, especially in your 30s?
Yeah. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad was probably the first book I opened that really started to open my mind, like the original Rich Dad, Poor Dad. 20 years ago was the first book that said, okay, you could be an entrepreneur, you could be a business owner. I think that had a really big impact on my life. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind is a book that I was like, okay, I get this. It was all in alignment with what I knew from studying things about our brain and our mind, but it put it in paper in terms of money.
Okay.
Yeah. And those are two of the biggest ones. I really, as a coach, I really encourage people to find one path, one author they like, do everything they say, versus go look at all, like read 100 different books. I'm not a person who reads 100 different books, but those are really two that, started me on my journey.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. So it's Cassie Parks, and if they want to get more information about your books, your coaching, your course, where do they go?
Cassie, Cassie, Parks, like Parks and Rec.com. And if they want to know their money stories, there's a free download. You don't have to put your email in. You can just get the download of all the money stories and take a look at them.
Wonderful. So, again, like I said, Cassie, you and I didn't know each other. We didn't really prep much for this either. Did this go like you expected? I probably shouldn't ask that question.
Oh, it was awesome. I loved it. It was so great and so much fun. You're a great interviewer.
Very good. I hope we could connect again. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. I will be back with you on the next episode of the Simply Financial podcast very soon. Thank you.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of SagePoint Financial Incorporated and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. No strategy can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Please note the information being provided is strictly as a courtesy. When you link to any of the websites provided here, you are leaving this website. We make no representation as to the completeness or accuracy of the information provided at these websites, nor is the company liable for any direct or indirect technical or system issues or any consequences arising out of your access to your use of third-party technologies, websites, information, and programs made available through this website. When you access one of these websites, you are leaving our website and assume total responsibility and risk for your use of the websites you are linking to. Securities and advisory services are offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Insurance services offered through Elliott Wealth Management, LLC, not affiliated with SagePoint Financial.
Simply Financial is part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can find Exvadio podcasts at exvadio.com/podcast, the Apple Podcasts app, iTunes Store, iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. So join us and stay informed and entertained.